Hello, hello, everyone. Val, hello, welcome in. Havoc, how are you? It's just a casual chat day. I was actually writing on my book. I was doing a few chapters on my book. I'm an author. I know, I'm going to toot my own horn for a minute. Toot, toot. I'm an author, and I was writing a chapter, a story about my grandmother. This coffee is so good. I was writing a story about my grandmother, and it came to my attention. Oh no, how did I put that box on there? Get out of there, box. It came to my attention that a lot of my grandmother's recipes were not written down. And my grandmother did not use a recipe book. She had no cookbook. There were no written recipes whatsoever. So I was actually talking to my sister, and my family's all very far away. We're separated by distance, major distances. And you can't just pop over and hang out and grab a cup of coffee or go for a beverage or a sandwich, anything like that. They just live too far away. But I was talking to my sister, and it made me think of a few things that I was writing down for a short story for my new book. Not a cookbook, just, short stories about my life growing up in the Smoky Mountains. And it made me realize I had so many great meals growing up. And many of you that hang out with me, that I talk about growing up in the Smoky Mountains and being in a very isolated community where we did not have television signals or radio stations coming in unless the wind was blowing correctly and you happened to have it on at that time to catch it. But my grandmother was a phenomenal cook. She absolutely could go into the kitchen and throw down. And by throw down, I mean she just could have a meal ready in 30 minutes that would take most people an hour and 45 because she had done it for so much of her life. But I was thinking about one of her recipes that I absolutely loved. And, well, several. She had several recipes that I just loved. But often during the holiday season, I would be hanging out with my grandparents for the weekend. Speakeasy Bob, hello, hello. I would love to stay with my grandparents on the weekends. It felt like a little adventure, just a getaway. And we were going to be making in the kitchen, it was going to be gingerbread. And my grandmother made what the family called a apple. It was a fruit cake. We called it a fruit cake, but it was made with apples, dried apples, and she would take the dried apples and cook them until they almost became a sauce. And I was, writing down. Speakeasy Bob, thank you. I was writing down just my memories about it. And then I was researching it, thinking, man, I wished I had that recipe from my grandmother. Today's topic are lost recipes, lost or forgotten recipes. Have you had a family member who passed on and they made something that you absolutely loved? And now, years later, or months later, days later, you're thinking, I wished I had that recipe. Well, my grandmother's fruit cake, and it wasn't fruit cake in the traditional of dried candied fruits, it was apples and apple sauce, and it was delicious, made with gingerbread. But that put me on a thought path of what did I lose, recipe, just sticking with recipes. What did I lose when my grandmother passed away? Now, my grandfather would fix coffee, and he would fix coffee. Grandpa, I don't know what all you didn't really cook. He never really cooked at all. But I think maybe on occasion, no, he just didn't cook. Like he didn't even fry a piece of bologna. He did not
Yeah.
fry a hamburger. He just didn't do any of that. But he would make the coffee. He would get the coffee started. Dom, welcome in. Thank you. Thank you. Speakeasy Bob, that little emote, I love it. I love it. I need to get a few more emotes on here. I don't think I can have too many because I don't have a lot of followers on this channel. But back to the land the plane, Sylvia. I'm doing the best I can. But so that cake, she did not follow a recipe. She went into the kitchen. She would often call me in. My sister often, if I wasn't there, she'd be there. And we basically were just company, just hanging out. And she would let me make Speakeasy Bob. Thank you. Thank you, Speakeasy Bob. Have a good day at work. She would let me make a gingerbread man. And I loved to make a gingerbread man because I knew that I was going to get to eat it later. And her gingerbread, which was the basis for this cake, started out just from scratch in her mind. You know, she did not refer to a recipe. She just knew all the ingredients. And she started with her flour and her mixtures and, you know, the butters, everything that she needed, the ginger, the vanilla flavoring. And she did it all from scratch. Manly Sprinkles. Manly Sprinkles, welcome in. Today's subject, if you're just joining, it's lost recipes, forgotten recipes. If you've had a family member who's passed on, moved out of your life, and they had a recipe that you love, but you don't have it, that's kind of what we're talking about. But she would make that fruit cake, and she would bake the cakes, and she would let those, cook till they were firm. They were girly sprinkles. Hello. She would let those cook until they were firm. And then once they cooled down, she would take her knife and the kitchen knife, her main kitchen knife, she called it a butcher knife. And it was today, I think we would probably refer to it as a chef's knife. I'm still having coffee. Can you believe it? Girly Sprinkles, supermodel. Welcome in, Girly Sprinkles. It's always good to see you. So she would hand slice those cakes with her butcher knife into little thin layers. Each cake became usually 4 layers. And those, K-Fizz, hello, welcome in. Those 4 layers would be laid out, and she would bring out a beautiful cake plate. She'd put the bottom layer on, and then she'd start the fruit. She'd start working with those wonderful apple. And sometimes she would need to sweeten them. Sometimes they were sweet enough that you didn't have to sweeten them. And that would go on and on until she normally would have like maybe 16 to 20 layers. And she loved to get it just stacked up. That cake, she loved to get it stacked up. And in doing my research just about the cake, because I was thinking, man, oh man, you know, my family, we've lost something really important. This cake recipe, we don't have it. We don't have the gingerbread recipe because my grandmother just never wrote it down. She never wrote anything down. She kept it in her head. But in talking to my sister, we were trying to recall what all went into it. We typed out as much information as we could, and then we did a search in the Appalachian region, you know, Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky, Virginia. And come to find out, this is the really interesting part. I felt like I was alone. I felt like that I was alone. My broadcast says fried chicken for some reason. I don't know why that's still on there. Fried chicken. But we were not alone. A lot of families had that. Some families called it a wash day cake, an apple stack cake. There are several different names, but it's well documented. It was a cake that was made throughout the Appalachian, the Smoky Mountains where I grew up. But we lost that. So my sister and I tried to recreate it the best we could from using, the knowledge that we had and outside resources. We looked at those. And my grandmother did not have a lot of electrical appliances. Superman, K-Fizz, Superman, Dom, Girly Sprinkles, Manly Sprinkles, Vol, Havoc. Everybody, come on in, grab a chair. We're just chatting. But I will, coming up, I was looking at the complexity of the recipe, and I was looking at how the cakes have to be sliced. And of course, now, I have mixers, I have modern appliances, although I'm still mixer adverse. I am. It always seems like the attachments are flying off, and that's probably operator error, OE. But I want to make that apple stack cake. I do want to make it. And it's complex, and I'm going to have to, in my mind, I'm going to have to work up to it. But that is the number one, like the foremost recipe that I've lost or forgotten. That would be it, that apple stack cake. Because we hand gathered the apples, we sun dried them out by the smokehouse. She had a big, massive table out there. It stayed out year round. And she would put a white, like a white linen or a white cotton sheet out. And then we would place all the apple slices where we had gathered apples out of the orchard. And then they would sun dry. And that would be the apples that she would use during the winter. And of course, she preserved a lot of them by canning them. She made applesauce, apple jelly, apple jam, apple cider vinegar, you name it. Because she grew up in a time when there were not refrigerators around the block.
Do you see chat? You see chat, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing chat. I've said hello to everybody,
I
I
just wasn't
think. Did I
sure.
miss somebody?
I wasn't sure. Sorry.
All right. Hello, Havoc. In case you're thinking, he's talking to himself. He stepped off into the deep end. Too much apple cider vinegar. Havoc's here with me in the OBS chat or Discord chat. He's in Discord chat. But that was my big recipe. If you're joining me late in the stream, we're talking about lost or forgotten recipes. If you had a family member who's passed on, moved on, no longer involved in your life, and they had a recipe that you loved, one that you remember, that apple stack or fruit cake. We called it fruit because it was made of apples. So delicious. And I'm going to try to work on that for my cooking channel. Now, one of the others that I thought about that I really kind of miss tremendously, but I feel like I have a good grasp on how she made hers because I watched for years. My grandmother and grandfather were lucky that they lived almost to be 100, but their chicken and dumplings. And my grandmother could throw down in that kitchen and had wonderful chicken and dumplings. And we had access to chickens there where I grew up. We had chickens. So the chicken and dumplings were fresh, and my grandmother would get in the kitchen, make everything from scratch, and she started everything that day. She really did not like to make a lot of things the day before. She liked to start very early in the morning. Breakfast was normally between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., always normally closer to 5 a.m. And that gave her time to start preparation for the day's meals. And then at the dinner hour, which was evening, there was no cooking. My grandmother did not cook. Once noon hit, the cooking was done. It was over unless it was like a Thanksgiving, Christmas, holiday meal. Zatu, hello, Superman. But the dumplings were always delicious, but I feel like I have a good hand on that. Any of you that are listening or seeing this past the live stream, is there a recipe from a family member that you miss or you think of often? Girly Sprinkles, I know you're North Carolina. I'm North Carolina. Anything that you can think of that you miss, Manly Sprinkles, Zatu, Superman. Superman, I know you and I have a lot of similarities, maybe, because I think you grew up with a good, a good assortment of meals on the table. I believe you did, Superman, but you can correct me, if I'm thinking wrong. But who can think of something that they really miss? I miss that cake that my grandmother made. She made wonderful dumplings, but I'm pretty close to her dumplings. Dumplings, if you're in another country, Zatu, hello. They're pieces of bread, usually without the leavening agents, like the baking soda, baking powder. A lot of people like a flat, dense dumpling that has a little bit of a chew to it. But I also like a fluffy dumpling. Give me a fluffy dumpling. Superman, your dad would make everything. He cooked in the kitchen, barbecued outside as well. And Superman, I know you've lost your father. Is there one specific thing that you really miss? One specific thing? Or do you still have the recipe for it? You might have the recipe for it. If you've got the recipe and you were taught or were able to watch, you might be able to recreate that recipe, from your memory, from scratch. Anybody, Chad, whatever you can think of, let's talk about it, because that's what we're here for. We're just here to chat and hang out. Oh, Superman, the meatloaf, the shepherd's pie, the spaghetti, the baked beans. Now, Superman, do you make any of those? What about your Aunt Linda? Viewers, chatters, friends, family. If you're wondering, these are folks that I've known for a while, and, I know some of their history, some things, because I know you're thinking, who's Aunt Linda? Who's Superman? So does Aunt Linda still cook any of that stuff? And where's Aunt Linda? She needs to come hang out with me. I feel like she'd give a good perspective. I see a mosquito. They followed me up here to this room. Get out of here, mosquito. But it's gonna aggravate me. But the dumpling aspect. Did you have the fluffy dumpling or you had the flat, chewier dumpling? Let me know. Leave me a comment. Fluffy dumpling, flat dumpling. Let me hear from you. So, and your family, like my grandmother, with no written recipes, everything was done from the heart, right? From the heart. But she never measured anything. Like when she poured liquids into a recipe, she just did it from that looks like what I need. If she was making biscuits, for example, which she made usually 5 to 6 days a week, she made biscuits and there was no measuring. She poured the liquids in, she put the oil in, usually lard. She used a lot of lard. And she never measured any of that stuff. She just was able to look at it and knew that that was the amount that she needed. Oh, you grew your own eggplant and you grew your own okra. So you had a lot of fried okra, Superman. I love fried okra. I could just munch on fried okra. It is so good. But Superman, I have shepherd's pie on my list. I'm going to have to make shepherd's pie. I've been watching some folks over in England that are making the shepherd's pie, and I'm trying to get a hang of it because I want to make one. I want to make a tasty, delicious shepherd's pie, and I want to make a cottage pie. I want to do both. Both. So in your dumplings, we had like a white gravy. We had a white gravy. And I know that some dumplings are more like a yellow broth. Your dumplings, were they the white gravy or the yellow broth type of dumplings? chicken dumplings. I do love the gravy one. I like the white gravy one. And have you ever attempted any of this stuff, Superman? Have you tried the shepherd pie? I feel like you're accomplished, and if you want to, you could set your mind to it, and you could replicate some of this stuff. All right, now another one that my grandmother loved was, we called them soup beans. Soup beans. Oh, Superman, that's good to know. Soup beans, growing up, we had a lot of white beans, pinto beans, lima beans. There were a lot of beans that my family grew. My grandmother had a big bean patch. And she loved to have a bean on the table several times a week, and she would rotate out the beans. My favorite probably was the pinto beans, because we would take streaked meat or fatback, and if that wasn't handy, some bacon or some ham, fried in the bottom of the pan or the bottom of the pot, then add the beans, and we always made sure they were rinsed and cleaned. No foreign objects in your beans. No foreign objects. So the soup beans, she would put those on early in the morning, very early. And in my young childhood, she had a wood and coal burning stove that was a backup source of heat and cooking. And if it was in the wintertime and the stove was going, because she loved to have it going all winter long, she would put the beans on the potbelly stove and just let them cook all day long. And they would be soupy and delicious. I just loved them, especially with cornbread. And she always put a hot pepper on the table, a pickled hot pepper, preserved, because she canned a lot of peppers. And in the book that I'm going to have coming up, I actually have a little story about hot peppers. Some of you have heard it. So Superman, he had a binder with tons of recipes. Oh, and he carried a lot of recipes around with him, like my grandmother did. She carried all of them around because it was things that she had made throughout her life, and she simply knew how to make them. That's why she never had a recipe. I'm glad he wrote it down. Superman, who has the recipe book? Have y'all made copies and shared it? Have you shared the recipe book? I feel like, recipes, they got to be shared. Somewhere in your house, I'm glad. I'm glad you've got it, Superman. You need to refer to that shepherd's pie, and we need to take a look at it. So, the pinto beans, soup beans, most often. I don't believe, now this, I'm just pulling from memory, okay? Pulling from memory. I don't remember having any black beans. I don't remember black beans. We had a lot of beans that I don't even remember the name of them, but I don't remember having black beans. None of those. So she would start out, if she knew she was going to be having beans for the next day, she looked them, rinsed them, and then sometimes she would let them soak, but overnight. But usually she got up early in the morning and started those beans first thing in the morning. They were given that thorough rinse, the looking through, and she'd get them started after frying some of that meat for flavor. The meat wasn't meant for you to have a big piece of meat in the beans. It was just as a seasoning, as a flavor. And what she put in her beans was that the meats, and they were usually salt cured or smoked. And she never really used sugar cured meats in her beans. And then she would use the salt and pepper, and that was kind of what went in them. And then if you wanted something additional, there would be condiments on the table. Like she would have stewed tomatoes, she would have pepper and pepper sauces, and you could use that in your beans if you wanted to spice those up. The funny thing, I do believe that she would have loved a refried bean, and I don't think she ever had refried beans. She did reheat beans. She'd pop them in the fridge and have them the next day because beans get soupier and delicious the next day. But she never pulled the juice out and then like fried the bean. Oh, Superman. Yeah, hang on to all that stuff. Document your family recipes. Ski will want those in the future. One day, those will be important to her. They really will. So beans, yes, and this. I was in my notes saying ham hock. We used to call it ham hock, salt pork, side meat, bacon grease. Most of those side dishes, even things like green beans, they weren't steamed. They weren't slightly blanched. They were cooked. And most of those dishes for flavoring, seasoning, had a piece of meat to start in the bottom. And then pickled onions. She would pickle onions like that day. She would use a water and apple cider vinegar and a little bit of sugar, salt, and pepper. Pickle onions. She would do fresh pickles from a cucumber. There were a lot. If it was in season, you often could find it pickled, as an extra add-on to the meal. And because my grandparents were super social, they had hundreds of people a year that would stop by. And they were very active in the community. A lot of people knew them. And they knew that at between 11 and 11:30, meal prep, it would start being put on the table. And at noon, if you were there past noon, you could go and get some leftovers. But if you got there between 11 and 11:30, you'd probably get a seat at the table, or often people would grab a plate and they would sit on my grandparents' front porch. They had a huge front porch with a lot of rocking chairs, a lot of chairs out there. My grandmother and grandfather my grandmother had like a big rocker that was soft and padded, and she could just sit there and rock for hours and enjoy a cool breeze. And then my grandfather his chair was not a rocker. It was a kind of a smaller version of my grandmother's big rocking chair because he liked to sit and he would sharpen his knives. He loved to whittle and carve. And in the afternoon after dinner, they liked to sit on the porch. That's where they loved to retire to. But during the meal, people would sit on the porch if there were not enough seats in the house. But you did not eat in the living room. Nobody, back then, people, I guess they just knew you didn't eat in the living room. You went outside if there wasn't enough room at the table. Superman, thank you. This morning it popped up on my phone that I got additional followers. So I'm not sure, exactly where it came from, but I did I got 2 additional followers in the last 2 days. So thank you, Superman, for looking. I hit 50, and I'm so excited about it. Thank you, everybody who has followed and hung out with me through my cooking journey. Having friends to share your meal with, as I just said about my grandparents, it's so important because meals alone, they can be good, but when you share something good with a friend, it can be great. And I love to share. And there's been a lot of people that have followed me on YouTube just recently. I think this month I've had maybe around 75 new followers on my cooking channel on YouTube. Thank you for that. Thank you. Oh, Girly Sprinkles, I love chicken salad. I love it. Now, Girly Sprinkles, are you going to use a recipe or are you making it from memory? I'm pretty good at making chicken salad from memory, although confession, I will put a lot of mayonnaise in it if given my own, my own choices. I put a lot of mayo, Duke's mayo, in my chicken salad. I do have a recipe on my channel, on my YouTube channel, that's a cafeteria lunchroom, a school lunchroom style chicken salad. Girly Sprinkles, chicken salad is from memory. I like a little celery in it, a little garlic, granulated or powdered garlic, some onion powder. I like that in there, the mayonnaise, and then I use a combination of pickles. I like a bread and butter pickle. I do. I can't help myself. And a dill pickle. And then in the last couple of years, I like a buffalo wing pickle that's hotter. Oh, Manly, you learned that recipe now. You get in that kitchen and learn that recipe. But remember, you need to write it down for future generations. For your child, they need that in the future. They might not remember it. Girly Sprinkles, who was the best cook in your family? Was it your mom, your dad, your grandmother? Is it you? Who's the best cook in your family? If I had to look at my family and say, who's the best cook? I don't know. Havoc, who would you say is the best cook in my family? Because, probably somebody that's no longer with us. My grandmother, I would have to say she was number one. But my mom was a phenomenal cook. So good at cooking. For Superman, it sounds like his dad was, the man with the plan in the kitchen, because it sounds like he could really get in there and fix some fantastic meals. My father was phenomenal with a hamburger. My father fixed the best hamburger. He'd throw that iron skillet on the oven, turn that oven on sky high, and get that pan where it was just smoking up the entire kitchen. And, the ventilation system couldn't pull it out fast enough. And he would throw that hamburger into a pan, and it would just make a crispy edge. It would have a crispy edge on both sides, and then it would be medium on the inside, and just salt and pepper. And my father made the absolute best hamburger. My mom just never fixed them like that. She never fixed them the way that my dad did. My mom was more about a medium heat and slightly browning it on both sides and having it cooked well done all the way through. My dad was not. Scorch that thing till it was, had a crunch on both sides and medium in the center. And Dad, you made the best hamburger. Oh, Superman ground beef and ground sausage. And I bet it was flavorful and juicy. Those are flavorful and juicy. What kind of sausage was it? I grew up, I think most of my life, we ate Jimmy Dean. Now, there is a sausage that I love that most people are not familiar with. And I have a video on my channel. And it's like a bulk sausage, and I call it breakfast sausage, but it comes in a can. It's processed in a can and it's seasoned, and I just love that stuff. But a lot of people aren't familiar with it, but it is like a breakfast style bulk sausage. Girly Sprinkles, you mix the ground beef and the ground breakfast sausage for some of the Italian recipes. Girly Sprinkles, I love that. Yes. Meatballs, I find those to be so good when they're mixed with the beef and the sausage like that. Pork and beef, marriage made in heaven, right? Pork and beef. Get them in the bowl, and they're phenomenal. Girly Sprinkles chili season is coming up. I'm going to have to go back to Manly Sprinkles and look at his recipe because I do need to get back into the chili. Who makes the best chili in your family? Is it, your mother, your father, your grandparents, a brother, a sister, you? Who's got the best chili recipe? Let me know. Let me know. I love a good chili, and I'm still searching for that chili recipe that I found. My family was living up in Kentucky at one point, and we went to a fundraiser at a school, and it was pay a certain amount, and it was all you could eat chili. And that chili, I have never forgotten it. Never forgotten it. It was up in Kentucky, I do believe. We were in Kentucky, and it was a fundraiser for the school, and the chili was so good. I've never forgotten it, and I have searched for that recipe. Now I'm an old man, and I'm still trying to find that chili recipe. I wish somebody in Kentucky that remembers that school had that chili recipe. Send it to me. I need it. I need it now. So, chili. I will make it again, Girly Sprinkles. I'm going to look at Manly Sprinkles. I will look at his recipe, and we'll get something done. I just love a good chili. I like a white chicken chili. I like a beefy chili. I like a pork and beef, the sausage. I'm all about that. And I'm willing to try other chilies. Meatless chili. I'm okay with meatless chili. Most of those have beans in them, and I'm okay with that. I know Texas, if you're in Texas, Speakeasy Bob, I know you're in Texas, but most of the folks in Texas, there's no beans in the chili. But I'm A-okay with beans. I'm fine with the bean. And you could even do a bean medley in the chili, and I'd be okay. Don't lose chili recipes. Hang on to them. Someday, I hope I find that chili recipe from that school up in Kentucky. Another one that, I got this from a list of recipes that family members wish they had, that they had lost with time or the passing of a family member. An apple stack cake. That's kind of what I was talking about from my grandmother earlier, was the apple stack cake. Wash day cake. There's a number of names from it. So those, I just feel like so many families lost them. I just really do. And, mine specifically, we do not have that gingerbread recipe. I can make the apples. I can do a lot of it. I know how to make the filling. I know how to cut the cake. It's just that exact gingerbread recipe I don't have because my grandmother used sorghum syrup. If you were with me this Saturday when I made the fried chicken, I had a hot honey glaze that was made with sorghum syrup and a fermented chili pepper sauce. The only one that you have was lost. It's your grandmother's recipe for making turnip greens. Oh, Girly Sprinkles, that was a staple. When the greens were in the garden, my grandmother and grandfather loved turnip greens. They just loved them. And she liked stewed turnips. They would stew the turnips, and sometimes I would think it was potatoes, and boy, would I get a surprise. It is. I wonder if they use like a salted meat or a sugar-cured meat or a smoked meat. Because a lot of families used meat for the flavoring. Yeah, Girly Sprinkles, we gotta get family members, hunt them down and see if anybody has it so that you can have those. Now, biscuits, you've heard me talk about biscuits. This is one that I feel like just gets lost. A lot of people today, many people, I would say, don't make biscuits. Why is that? Well, they may never have learned. They might not have the recipe. They might not be inclined to devote the time or the mess that it can make. Biscuits can get messy. They can. Or I think part of the reason, and let me know if you guys agree or disagree with this, part of the reason could be that frozen biscuits have gotten so good. The frozen biscuits, you get them in a bag, the biscuits are all pre-cut, they're ready to just throw into the oven and bake. The frozen biscuits are so good, it's difficult to tell them apart from a homemade made from scratch. Now, my biscuit, I use 2 cups of flour and I use a full stick of butter, the full stick, an American stick, because if you're watching me from England or Great Britain, Germany, some of the other countries, in America, a stick I think is about 1/4 of a cup. Is Val here? Val cooks a lot. I think that butter is it 1 stick of butter. Is that 1/2 a cup? I'd have to look it up. 1 stick of butter, American butter. But lately, the last few years, I don't use margarine. I do not use margarine. Do not bring margarine in the house. Don't bring a recipe in the house that's got margarine in it. Don't marginize me. Uh, I do buy a lot of the European style butters. And the thing about butter, read the fat content, because the higher the fat content, the more flavor your butter is going to have. So you have to look at some of those European butters and check the fat profile. But the American stick is, I think. Let me just find out. Let's hang on. I'm gonna find out. Let's find out. Do your thing, Google. Yeah, yeah. Come on, show it to me now. An American stick of butter is 1/2 cup, and that is 113 grams. So 1/2 of a stick is equal to 1/4 of a cup. That's good to know. That is good to know. But the biscuits, my grandmother, the way she made them, now listen, I measure everything usually. I do measure, if I want a really consistent biscuit that tastes the same over and over again, I measure. And only rarely do I use a little bit of sugar in my biscuits. My question is, do you use sugar when you're making homemade biscuits? Let me know. Let me know. I normally don't put any of the sugar in there, but it does. If you put about a tablespoon of sugar in, it will balance the flavors out. And the biscuit will not taste sweet. It will not taste sweet. But I normally just skip that part. I put my baking soda, baking powder, the salt in there, and the flour. And I use, real butter. I have used lard, but I do prefer real butter. I do. And then I use a full fat buttermilk. I use a full fat buttermilk. But I measure everything, and I usually have the butter blended in. And something, I hate to confess this, but I use a food processor to cut the butter into the flour. But you can do it by hand. You can do it by hand. So biscuits are one of those things. Did you grow up with homemade biscuits, or did you grow up with a canned biscuit? Canned biscuit, frozen biscuit, or homemade biscuit? Which did you grow up with? Let me know. Girly Sprinkles, I feel like you had probably homemade biscuits. I do. Superman, you probably had a lot of homemade biscuits. When my grandmother got into her late 80s, early 90s, she would occasionally, and she'd be mad if she heard me telling this, she would occasionally use a canned biscuit because she would sometimes get up and say, I'm going to take a little bit of a shortcut today. Let's open a can of biscuits. And she would open the canned biscuits, and that would give her a quick little shortcut. And she would move in immediately to, frying the sausage, the bacon, the eggs. She would do the other things. Oh, Manly Sprinkles, thank you. I watched you yesterday, Manly Sprinkles, for a long time. I stayed silent in the background, but I had you going. I hear you. I want the stuff to work smoothly. Oh my gosh, Havoc had to re-sign me in on this system this morning. But this room, I'm here at this desk in one of the spare bedrooms. This, I use it just for my cooking chit chat. This is just for cooking chit chat, and I would make a cooking short here because I don't like to have to switch in and out. I don't like to have to sign in and out. I want to just be able to sit down and have it all work seamlessly. I'm here with you, Manly Sprinkles. I'm with you on that. I am unanimous in that. 100% unanimous. So I grew up with mostly homemade biscuits. Now, later in life, my mom, she did just say, hey, let's get those frozen biscuits and we won't have to, have that mess of cleaning up the flour and all that kind of stuff. And she had no problem getting a frozen biscuit. And we used a brand like Auntie B's or Mama B's, something like that. They come in the freezer section and so good. I'm not sponsored, but we loved them. So my mom would use those. Now, I don't really buy frozen biscuits because I just rather make them fresh. That way I don't have to worry about them. How long have I had these in the freezer? I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. I just make it, when I need it. Oh, so you're saying this camera looks better, Manly Sprinkles? Vol, it's Mrs. B's. Mrs. B's. Yeah, this is a different camera. This is a, I don't remember the name of this camera, but this is a 4K camera. And the one I think I have from my gaming camera is a 1080p. Well, it's supposed to be 4K, maybe. It's supposed to be AI. Thank you, Manly Sprinkles. It's a phenomenal little camera. The one that I have in my gaming setup, it is supposed to be the best, but I find this little thing to be phenomenal. I don't remember what the name of it is, but man, oh man, it is good. It is so good. But I also use this same camera style on my cooking live stream. And I'm going to be hooking up a third camera for my cooking live stream. Mrs. B's is the best frozen biscuit ball. That's what my mom loved when she just wanted to take a shortcut. Because, look, we all know this, right? I have said this out loud on my cooking stream. If I wasn't streaming live, I'm all about the fewest dishes I can possibly have. When I grew up with my grandparents, my parents, my family in North Carolina, everything was taken out of its cooking pot, its cooking pan, and it was placed into a serving bowl. It was placed on the table. It was multiple bowls, pots, pans, all the serving utensils, all the serving bowls, all the plates. There was never anything like a paper plate. No paper plates. So after you had your meal, there was this huge mess because if something was left over, it was, put back into the pot possibly, or it was put into a container and moved to the refrigerator. But just there were no shortcuts about anything paper, and it was not left on the stove. It was not buffet style. You didn't take your plate over to the stove and dip out what you wanted. Everything was on the table for you. And if you didn't get seconds, if you didn't get seconds, my grandparents would be like, they didn't like the food. What was wrong? Oh, she must have been feeling bad because she didn't go back for seconds. You had to get seconds. If you're a small eater, you didn't want a big meal, you would just cut the portion in half, but make sure you went back for a second. Oh, Vol, these are Osbot 4K webcams, and they are good, Manly Sprinkles. They are good. This Osbot, they have one that's a 1080p, and then they have the 4K. And I've noticed there's a couple of manufacturers that are coming out with 6K and 8K. But Osbot, really good, really good. And I find their price to be, reasonable. The Elgato 4K. The one I use in my gaming setup is it's one of the it's a big name brand, and it's supposed to be AI assisted, but I can't really tell. The AI might not function because I run it through OBS. Havoc probably knows more about that than I do. But it's
I think it's still running even through OBS.
the AI is running even through but it doesn't. I want it to make me look pretty, but it doesn't do that. Some things are beyond the ability of a camera. It's the same as my keyboard. What is that camera in there? It's not.
I don't know.
It's not Casio or Elgin.
A Logitech or whatever.
Logitech. It's a Logitech. That sounds like Magitech. They're coming for us. Magitech. It's Logitech. Oh, Nexago N60. The one I use for my gaming is Logitech something. There might be another name on it, but it's from the Logitech because it matches the keyboard, the mouse. Sometimes I try to buy a set of things hoping it's all going to work really well together. I find that usually it's not the case. But thank you, Manly Sprinkles. I do really like this Osbot. This is an Osbot 4K. I upgraded all of my cameras because Superman said everything was turning me green. Oh, it's the Logitech's MX Brio with AI capability. But I think I like this. I'm like Manly Sprinkles. This Osbot, it just really keeps everything clear. Although, it's this part of my hair looks like it's got a little bit of brown in it, but it's got a lot of white. It's supposed to match my beard. The one that I formerly used for my cooking live stream, Superman said it had a lot of green in it, and it did have a lot of green in it. And I think Havoc tried to correct the green, and we just couldn't get it out. Something wasn't it, Havoc, with that camera that I used to do my cooking stream with? Something was up with it. Yeah, and I've been told that a pink bulb, makes you look youthful and wrinkle free. I'm going to need a load of pink bulbs brought in. I need pink bulbs. All right. So chow chow, pepper relish, pickles, a lot of that kind of recipes where you're preserving foods. It's easy for those to be lost when somebody that loves that kind of thing. Because probably there are many families that has someone that loves to preserve foods to last through the winter, through the spring. And chow chow and pickles, those are big on people preserving those. Relishes, I mean, my family has fixed pickles for as long as I can remember. And we would always have pickles left over because cucumbers, they grew fast and easy. There just was a lot of cucumbers on my family's place. So we always canned and preserved a lot of them. And we never ate all the cucumbers that we had. Now, the peppers, usually those did disappear, but the cucumbers, we always had plenty of them. A lot of people will also, they've done probably green tomatoes. I've never preserved a green tomato, but they use them in chow chow. Val, I think you preserve and make chow chow. Green tomatoes, is that a thing? Green screens, green tomatoes, green camera settings, green chow chow. But today, most of the chow chow that I use, it's store bought. I said it. I said it out loud. Most of the chow chow is store bought. And, because you have to cut up a lot of the vegetables, get it all prepped, go through the process. You have to have the canner. You have to, make sure that the temperatures are correct, that jars are sealing correctly. There's a lot to preserving food with canning methods. And I think there's a steam bath method, and then there's the old-fashioned pressure canning. It's two different things, and it's two levels of the canning process. Some things have to be taken to a higher temperature. They just do. So relish is something, I think that my family would still have the relish recipes, the pepper recipes, because they have been so standardized over the last couple of 100 years that that's the way it has to be. That's what you use. There's not a lot of variation. Now, you could vary in maybe the spices that you're using in the jar. That could be a thing where you would vary it. Something that I've done on my channel, and many of you may not have seen this, I made something called leather breeches. And the video may not be one of the finest I've ever made, and I'm going to tell you why. Leather breeches are air-dried green beans. Like a pole bean or a white half runner, but a green bean. And the green beans are gathered. If they had strings on them, you would de-string them. And then you would use food safe twine, and you would take a stainless steel needle and string the beans on the twine. And then you would hang those up and let those air dry. You could probably also sun dry those, but they would be hung usually on a back porch somewhere that had a lot of circulation because you wouldn't want them to hang where there was no circulation. They could mold, and mold is the enemy. But leather breeches, I've made those many times, and I actually did a video on leather breeches on my channel. I love them. They're absolutely one of my favorite things to eat. Leather breeches. Have you ever had those to eat, or have you ever made them? Leave me a comment. But I love leather breeches. They're just absolutely the dried bean with the shell. So delicious. Colin Grant, hello, welcome in, buddy. We're just talking about lost or forgotten recipes that your family, maybe you had it when you were young, when you were growing up, and now you don't have access to it anymore because someone's moved away, they've passed on, you didn't inherit the family cookbook, or they simply didn't take notes. It could be any one of those. All right, my coffee's gone. That means I need to switch to, I have my backup ready, iced tea. Oh, Colin, you are Smokey McSmokes? Welcome in, Colin. Welcome in. Smokey McSmokes. I didn't know you were one and the same. One and the same. So dehydrated beans, the beans that you buy in a bag, they are dried, dehydrated, but dried out and done at the commercial level, so, because they do, probably millions of pounds of beans. And it's an excellent way to store a bean beyond even one season. When a bean has been dried out like that, it's good for a very long time. Now, the longer the bean has been dried out, the harder it becomes. They can become really like rock hard, and it would take a super long time cooking them to get them where they are like soft. And you might cook them for 6 hours, 8 hours, and they might still be hard. That's because they have dried for a very long time. It probably, maybe a year is what's recommended. I'm sure, they can go beyond that, 2 years. You just want to always clean your dried beans, wash them, and you can let them soak overnight if they're older, or let them cook longer when you're actually doing the cooking process. But my family still, that's another one of those processes where I think how the process of making the dried beans is so standard that people know how to work with that. Or, if you're into that preserving foods, you probably have a dehydrator, or you have a method, or you have a table where you can preserve your foods with sunlight. So, and some people take their beans and they do rehydrate them overnight. They would rehydrate them. So it says, something here that a lot of people shuck beans. Shuck beans. Now, I don't know that we ever referred to it as a shucked bean. Anybody from North Carolina, Girly Sprinkles, I know you are. We never said we're going to shuck some beans. We shucked the corn, but we never shucked a bean. Oh, Girly Sprinkles, you have not had a fresh tomato? Oh my gosh. Girly Sprinkles, we're going to have to remedy that. Manly Sprinkles, you've got to find a farmer's market and get some fresh tomatoes. Girly Sprinkles, right now, I have 6 green tomatoes just ready to be fried. I want to do something delicious with them. Green tomatoes. And I probably need to fry some green tomatoes for dinner tonight. I can sit down and just, make a meal out of fried green tomatoes. Manly Sprinkles, you live in one of the super centers of the world for fresh produce. I have driven through Florida a lot, and I covered a lot of Florida on my motorcycle one year, and there's just so much growing down there. Holy cow. South of Miami, it just seemed to be massive gardens, one after another. But I know that there's so much that's grown in Florida besides oranges. I know the orange crops are being decimated by some bug, insect, something's coming through and munching on all the oranges and orange trees. I know, I know. Do you know when I made that dip and I used lettuce in it? I thought about that later and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have used lettuce in that. But, I also used tomatoes. But I did eat that dip I made, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. And I was okay. So I guess, everything that I had, I think I used all the tomatoes. Everything from that dip has been used. So they were all A-okay. Girly Sprinkles, a good heirloom tomato that's juicy and, got that nice little punch of acid in there with some Duke's mayo on some fresh white bread. That's living. That is living. That's better than a yacht in the Bahamas, right? A delicious tomato sandwich with mayonnaise on white bread. Yeah, give it to me. Give it to me now. I actually tried to order in some of the, some of those really delicious tomatoes that, not the little hard ones. I know those little hard ones are what you find at the grocery store, but I wanted heirloom tomatoes, the big, misshapen tomatoes that are so good, so delicious. Now, Sunday fried chicken, that, yesterday, Saturday, in my live stream, I did a really special fried chicken. And if you haven't seen it on my channel right now on YouTube, the full video is out. And it shows me cutting the chicken, taking some of the steps. It does show it, a lot of the steps that I took. So be sure to check that video out, because for the live stream, you didn't get to see the pickle brine or me covering it in buttermilk, that kind of thing. And that's been added into the full-length video. And then some of the chit-chat where I was just speaking with you guys and waiting for the chicken to fry, some of that has been eliminated. Not laminated, eliminated. But Girly Sprinkles, now I'm going to be concerned about that. You let me know when you get some really good fresh tomatoes. I think there's a couple of massive farms down in Florida that specialize in tomatoes. There used to be. Things could have changed. But let me know, because now I'm concerned that you're not going to get any delicious heirloom tomatoes this spring and summer. So the chicken was soaked in a pickle brine. It was then soaked in buttermilk. The chicken recipe that your family used, do you remember it? Or do you refer to a recipe? Do you go to a cookbook? Do you go to YouTube? Where do you find your recipe for fried chicken? Leave me a comment. Let me know. Fried chicken. Where do you go? Girly Sprinkles, you're concerned too? Girly Sprinkles, if I was down there, you and I, we'd get us an Uber or a Lyft, and we'd go out and we'd find some good fresh tomatoes. That's what we'd do. We'd go out and we'd get something. And do they sell Duke's mayonnaise in the grocery stores where you're at, Girly Sprinkles? I know that Duke's was supposed to be rolled out across the United States. It was supposed to go national, because Duke's started in South Carolina. Duke's mayonnaise started in South Carolina, and then it grew from there. But for a long time, Duke's mayonnaise was just in the South. But it's now supposed to be taken out nationwide to all the states. Blue Plate, I like Blue Plate. Hellman's is probably not my favorite, and I don't remember liking the Kraft mayonnaise. But Blue Plate today for my lunch, I had a ham sandwich with Duke's mayonnaise on it. Duke's is everywhere nowadays. I knew they were going to roll it out on a national level, because one of the big companies ended up buying Duke's, and they were going to take it to a national level. Miracle Whip, Manly Sprinkles, come on now. What is Miracle Whip? I don't even think that's mayonnaise. But I remember trying Miracle Whip a long time ago, maybe like 20 or 25 years ago. When did Miracle Whip come out? But I'm not sure that Miracle Whip, I'm not sure that's mayonnaise. Like sandwich spread, I think Kraft makes one that's, doesn't Kraft make something that's called like a sandwich spread? I don't think the sandwich spread, it's not really mayonnaise. I don't think it is. I'd have to look at it, I'd have to look it up and find out. Superman, Miracle Whip. What's in Miracle Whip? There are times where I just make mayonnaise here at home because you can make a really good mayonnaise, use all fresh ingredients, and you can season a mayonnaise exactly the way that you want it. A lot of people, I think, are concerned that they won't make a good mayonnaise, but you can make a good mayonnaise at home. But Superman, I hear you, Miracle Whip. And is Miracle Whip, is its primary soybean oil, vinegar, eggs? I don't remember using a lot of Miracle Whip. But fried chicken, back home, look, we took the chicken fresh. We put a little salt and pepper on it. We dunked it in just an all-purpose flour and we fried it. That was it. There were no special baths. There was no overnight in the brine, no overnight in the buttermilk. It was salt and pepper, flour, and pop it in the pan. And usually, growing up, we used pure lard. And then later in life, my family switched to mainly vegetable oil for frying, but then still used a lot of lard for making the recipe. And, there in the late 70s, the early 80s, I remember, I'm going to say this, I will say this. In the 70s and the early 80s, I remember, my parents, they switched over to margarine. Is margarine a brand name or is that just a generic name for hydrogenated oil? Margarine. I don't remember exactly. But I know there's states in the United States where you can't, it's like against the law to eat margarine. States that were heavy in milk production and butter production, they basically kind of outlawed margarine. So it's always funny to see which states did that. High fructose corn syrup, yeah, that's a culprit. Superman, I was looking at the ketchup. I had a chicken sandwich and some fries delivered a couple of days ago, and I was looking at the ketchup packets, and there was a lot of high fructose corn syrup in the ketchup. Now, I loved the ketchup, okay? I loved it. But I just remember looking at that and thinking, ketchup can be delicious with no sugar and no high fructose corn syrup. So I just would have preferred it not to have so much high fructose corn syrup, because a good ketchup, when it's properly prepared and seasoned, because ketchup usually has vinegar in it, salt and pepper, it can be so deliciously sweet from quality tomatoes that it doesn't need the high fructose corn syrup. It doesn't need sugar added. The thing about it is, you can get a natural sugar-free or a natural no added sugar or corn syrup ketchup, and it will actually be more money than the one they've added all the ingredients into. I don't understand that. Like if you're taking ingredients out, shouldn't it be, less expensive? Shouldn't we get a price break? I think so. I think we should. Because they're not using the sugars. Oh, Superman, I do not think that would be a statement of fact. I don't think you'll eat just anything. Your father sounded like an excellent cook, so you grew up eating good. It cost way more to eat healthy. Yeah, and I know a lot of people today, Superman, don't have the ability to grow their own crops because they don't have, the land, the property, the area. or maybe the time to grow their own crops. I was actually thinking I would like to have chickens back, on the upper side of my backyard. I would love to have chickens back because, there's peach trees out there, apple trees. And I would love to have some chickens back for fresh eggs, not for meat, but for fresh eggs. But I just can't do it because, the possums would get them. And I don't want my chickens to be taken out by a big, hungry possum. Or, even the hawks. There's so many hawks in my community. And then there's a couple of big owls, but they hunt at night. I don't think the owls really hunt during the day. But chickens, I would love to have fresh eggs again. Because for years here, I had chickens in the backyard. They kept everything just, mowed down beautifully. And just chickens, they were so wonderful for that. But eventually, the possum got them all. Or, several possums, several of them. Oh, Superman, you will not eat octopus, crab, crawfish, anything that looks like an alien. Superman, I don't want any octopus. I don't want anything to do with that. And I don't want, crawfish etouffee. I don't want that either. And none of the, I'm with you, Superman. We're on the same page. But now I do love a good Krabby Patty. I like a crab patty. Zatu, King of Scotland. I was reading a note that Kat sent to me, and she said, I'm waving to Zatu because we all know he's the King of Scotland. Zatu, hello, hello. It's good to see you. So I hope Kat's having a fun time on her vacation. She's traveling the world. But Sunday fried chicken, was it Sunday when you had your fried chicken, or did you have your fried chicken on Saturday? When we used to picnic a lot when I was growing up, chicken was a big feature for Sunday meal. We would have fried chicken, and we would have mashed potatoes and gravy and biscuits and green beans and squash and okra. There'd just be an assortment on the table. Oh, Superman, you like fish, but you don't go in for more than that when it comes to seafood. Normally, Superman, I do not buy seafood because we simply are fishing our oceans to death. I try to stay away from most of it. Now, if I know that it's sustainably resourced, I would think about that. And probably twice a year, I do have something that's shrimp based. I think I made something with shrimp in it on my cooking channel on YouTube. But it's not my first choice. It is not my first choice. Oh, Zatu, you heard from Kat as well. She didn't get to dock in one of the spots where they wanted to go in because there was inclement weather, and the waves were so severe they just couldn't get to the docks. Superman, what is your primary, meat, your protein? What's your primary protein? Is it beef, chicken? I want to make some fish soup. This winter, I'm going to make some fish soup. The thing about fish soup, you have to add the fish toward the end, or it can just break up and disintegrate, or it could get lumpy and chewy. And nobody wants chewy fish. Nobody. Now, potato salad and deviled eggs, that is one of those things. I feel like everybody, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, doesn't everybody kind of have their own deviled egg recipe? Don't you have one that's like, this is my favorite way to make them, and this is the way I make them? Superman, you like hot dogs, burgers, steaks, chicken nuggets, pork chops. The staples, That's the staples, the good ones. Superman, I bought a whole big thing of hot dogs to make some gourmet hot dogs, and I have forgotten about them in the refrigerator. I found them in there this morning. I'm going to have to check the date. The hot dogs might have gone bad. Mainly Sprinkles, Southern folks are known for their deviled eggs. They really are. And I think everybody kind of has like their own deviled egg recipe. Like I have a deviled egg recipe that I love because I like to use, water chestnuts. Give me some water chestnuts in my deviled eggs and in my potato salad. So I feel like it's one of those things where everybody kind of has their own favorite way to make deviled eggs. I know I do not make them the way my grandmother did. So I lost that recipe. She never wrote it down and I never learned it. And my mother made them different from my grandmother. And I certainly make them different from that. But how they made them, my mom and my grandmom, it's gone. But I like mine totally different. And my grandmother and my mom both had my deviled eggs. And my grandmother would say, like, what's these little crunchy things in here? What's the crunchy thing in my deviled egg? And I would say, that's water chestnuts. It's water chestnuts. Zatu, are you telling me that you guys don't have deviled eggs? How are you living? How can you have a Sunday picnic without deviled eggs? How do you have a Sunday meal? Or what about big holidays? What, you don't have a deviled egg? But Zatu, have you ever eaten a deviled egg? Zatu, I'm going to ask you some questions. Zatu. Have you ever had a deviled egg? Everybody. No, you've never had a deviled egg. Zatu, you've got things to look forward to. Now, of course, Zatu, you have everything you need to access to create a deviled egg. The main thing is you need eggs, salt, pepper, mayonnaise, and then whatever little fixings you need in there, like a good pickle. There's a lot of recipes for deviled eggs, so you'd be able to find something and give it a try. It could be something you would like, and it might not be. The overall taste is boiled egg. But a lot of people make them different. They have a lot of recipes. But that was definitely lost. I don't have my mother or my grandmother's recipes to go from. So it's definitely one of those things. And the same goes for potato salad. I don't have my mom's potato salad recipe or my grandmother's potato salad. I feel like as the generations have gone on, I remember my grandmother's potato salad was very simple. It was potatoes, usually a Yukon Gold, or like one of the red waxy potatoes. It would be that, and then usually some mustard, mayonnaise, and a pickle relish. She would use a pickle relish. It was very simple and very little relish in it. It was tasty, but then, my mom went on from that and she would have potatoes and boiled eggs and a pickle relish, sweet and sour. And, sometimes she loved celery in her potato salad. And then when it hit my generation, I'm all about the medley of pickles. I like bread and butter. I like a sour pickle. I like a buffalo wing pickle, that has that kind of that hot sauce feel to it. Love those. And I have that on my channel on YouTube. And I like celery and just very, very minimal amount of onion. The red onion or white onion or yellow onion, it's all okay with me because I just use a tiny little bit. And then the water chestnuts, I feel like, are the star of the show. I love them. But I will be making a potato salad with a lime pickle. Lime, a lime pickle. Have you ever had a potato salad with lime pickles? Let me know. And who in your family makes the best potato salad? Is it you, mom, grandmom, a family friend even? Who makes the best potato salad? Let me know. Zatu, when I'm in Scotland, we're going to make some deviled eggs and see if you like them. We'll go and pick out all the ingredients and have a deviled egg. So, and I like my potato salad slightly warm. Give it to me just slightly warm. I can eat it when it's cold and it's set in the refrigerator for several hours or the next day, but I like it when it's still slightly warm. If you were to sit down at the table and you had potato salad, would you be able to taste it and know who made it? Would you be able to taste that potato salad and say, oh, my grandmother made this, or, oh, my brother made it, or my sister made it? Leave me a comment if you could know who made the potato salad. Was it that distinctive, that good, or was it that awful? Potato salad. So now let's take a look at some of this other red eye gravy. I kind of think red eye gravy is a lost art. Did you have a family member that made red eye gravy? I grew up with red eye gravy. If we had country style ham that had been salt cured, we had red eye gravy to go with the milk gravy. And coming up on a future live stream or video, I will be making red eye gravy, the real deal. Not the one where they pour, a cup of coffee in it and think it's red eye gravy. The real red eye gravy. And I have everything in the refrigerator right now to make red eye gravy. I'm excited about it. But I think red eye gravy is one of those things that's just, it's basically gone. I just think it's gone. Do you agree, red eye gravy? Do you make it yourself? Have you eaten red eye gravy? Has anybody had red eye gravy? Let me know. Kevin, hello, welcome in. I'm on one of those woven chairs, and this thing is driving me insane. These woven chairs, they're cool, but they're uncomfortable. So I will be making the red eye gravy. Kevin, it's good to see you. Welcome in, as always. Grab your chair, pull it on up, chat with me. We're hanging out. So then let's go through. They talk about chocolate gravy. I'm going to be making some chocolate gravy coming up. I made tomato gravy just recently on my channel. And I need to make another style of tomato gravy that's more intensely tomato, because I added cream, and the cream will dilute some of that tomato flavor, but I need to make it just the straight up tomato gravy with no cream. Chocolate gravy is a yes. Squash casserole. I didn't really grow up with a lot of squash casserole. Maybe every once in a while on a special occasion, somebody in the family would make a squash casserole, but we didn't do a lot of squash casseroles. Now, this is one that we had probably once every 5 or 6 weeks. Salmon patties. And I'm just going to say this, okay? Back home, it wasn't salmon. It was salmon. We had salmon patties. And if I am not mistaken, now I know that there's some of you out there that will come at me on my vocabulary. I think you can actually say both are correct. Salmon or salmon, depending on what region you are in. Oh, Manly Sprinkles, the chicken salad is so good. Are you having it sandwich style or with crackers? How are you having it? Manly Sprinkles, I'm glad. How are you having the chicken salad? Oh, I love the salmon cakes, or as you know, I grew up with salmon cakes. You're having your chicken salad as a sandwich. I know it's delicious. I know it is. But salmon patties, that's another thing. My grandmother was very, very basic. She used some breadcrumbs, an egg, salmon, salt, and pepper, and that was basically it. They were just a real basic, and she probably often it was cornmeal. She put a little cornmeal in them, and they would have a crunchy exterior. And then my mom added her salmon patties would have onion, celery. They became a little bit fancier. And then if I make them, I definitely like to fancy them up. The onion, the celery, the water chestnuts. I love a water chestnut in the salmon patty. And I like some spices thrown in there. I know I get this a lot. Paprika. I like a little bit of paprika thrown in. Remember, paprika is basically ground pepper. It's pepper that's been sun dried or dehydrated till it's just totally dried out. And then it's ground into a fine powder. And I just love so many paprikas. So many of them are so good. And salmon patties are good with some apple cider vinegar sprinkled over the top. Okay, I got both of them in, Manly Sprinkles. I got both of them. Paprika and apple cider vinegar. Although I've mentioned apple cider vinegar, I know earlier. But the salmon patty, it's changed. It has progressed. They're delicious. I love them. If you've never had one, it's one of those things that there's probably 500 to 1,000 different recipes, and all of them are good. Manly Sprinkles, you're Puerto Rican. We're going to have to talk about condules. Arroz con condules. And I should have said Saturday I was using my molcajete. Although molcajete, I think, is more Spanish. There's a Puerto Rican, the mortar and pestle. You can see one behind me right there. That's a wooden mortar and pestle. And that's actually, there's another word for the wooden version of that. If Vol is still here, I know Vol knows. Manly Sprinkles, are you fluent in a pelon? Pelon. Yes, that's the wooden version of a mortar and pestle. A pelon. And I think that's a Puerto Rican term. I think. Don't come for me. I'm trying to broaden my horizons. I'm trying to shine. I do have a few viewers down in Puerto Rico. Oh, you are fluent. So, you're going to have to talk. We'll have to discuss it one day, Manly Sprinkles. Mexico calls it a molcajete. See, I'm practically fluent in Spanish. Molcajete. And then in Puerto Rico, it's a pilon. Pilon. I think the N is silent because it looks like pile on, but it's pilon. If you know the language, leave me a comment. Mortar and pestle, molcajete, or a pilon. Have you heard it referred to? Mofongo. Okay, what is mofongo? Oh, pelon. The N is not silent. Pelon. Pelon. Is my hair sticking up? It looks like it is. And I've made it a mess. You look in this and it's totally opposite from what it is when you're, holding your hand on it. It flips everything. Pelon. Pelon. Pilo. Pelon. Like Lone Star. Pelon. So you elongate the O? Is that what that little symbol means? Pelon. So Manly Sprinkles, that, I have to ask the question, how do you refer to your mortar and pestle? And who's the best cook in your family, Manly Sprinkles? Your mom, your dad, your grandmom, your grandfather? Men, don't be shy. There's a lot of men out there that know how to cook. I get more views on my channel from men who I think are cooking, learning to cook, or just checking references as far as like what recipes are, so that they can, compare it to their own. Mofongo is fried, mashed up plantains. You stuff it into a pelon, then mix in some pork rinds and top it with your choice of meat. Manly Sprinkles, we're going to have to duo stream a cooking one day. Because I'm going to need to see that. Because those plantains, I can't eat them. I can't eat those. Best cook is probably your grandfather or your uncle. Now, Manly Sprinkles, are they in Puerto Rico or do they live in Florida? Are you able to access their good food? Kevin, you kind of know how to cook. Now, Kevin, your heritage, I think, is Spanish because you talk about a lot of good Spanish foods. And I love so many of those Spanish and Mexican dishes. Oh my gosh, just pile it on me. Bring me those. Bring me. Oh, Manly Sprinkles, you have full access. Then you get good home cooked meals in a traditional style often, probably. What does Girly Sprinkles think about your native cooking styles and native cooking foods? Kevin, you're Mexican. Oh my gosh. Give me Mexican cheeses. Ooh, Kevin. Some chimichangas, some burritos. My gosh, I just love them. Give me a deep fried chimichanga. I'm in heaven. Girly Sprinkles, you love it. You love everything. I do love a lot of different cuisines. There's a lot of the Puerto Rican meals I have yet to try. I do need to, branch out. I got to branch out and try a lot of them. Kevin, there's a lot of foods from Mexico that I need to try. I've been to Mexico several times, and not just the touristy destinations, but, deeper in to just towns and cities, places that weren't, they're not touristy. So I need to try more of the Mexican dishes, more of the Puerto Rican dishes for sure. But plantains, I can't warm up to those little hard bananas. I know people like fry them. They deep fry the plantains, but I've yet to run into a dish where I'm like, yum, I'm going to have this again. Now, I'm open, Manly Sprinkles. I'm open to finding one that I love. I just, I hope I do find one that I love. All right, let me look on further. Meatloaf. I think meatloaf is one of those things where maybe, did you inherit a meatloaf recipe that you love? Or have you taken meatloaf and brought it into the present day? Because I feel like there's a lot you can do with meatloaf. I see a lot of stuffed meatloafs. Kevin, tamales, I love them. And Kevin, I bet you have the ones that are in the real corn husk. You have the real tamales that are made with the corn husk. Oh, Girly Sprinkles, I know you were. Manly Sprinkles, there's a difference in the plantains. They all just seem like hard rocks. Is the sweet plantain hard as a rock? Oh, God.
That's funny.
Nexus, hello, welcome in. We're talking about just recipes and inheriting recipes, lost recipes, forgotten recipes. Maybe you had a relative, a great grandparent, a grandparent a mom, a dad, and maybe you miss that one meal or those special meals that your family made that you might not have access to anymore. Kevin, your mom makes them homemade. Fresh is better. They have green plantains and yellow plantains. The yellow ones are very soft and sweet tasting. The green ones are firm and used to make tostones. Tostones. Now, I feel like I've made tostones. Are those fried banana chips? Is that what those are? Girly Sprinkles, maybe I've never had a sweet one. I feel like, I have. Years ago, I always thought I would move to Puerto Rico, shave my head, and buy linen clothing and walk the beach and just, live the beach life. They're flattened and fried green plantains. I've had those. Maybe they just weren't prepared right. I guess you could dip them in maple syrup and powdered sugar, and then they become edible. God. Don't come for me. I just can't. I want to find one that I love, so I'm open. I'm open to trying a plantain. But I think that they smother them in syrup or honey with a little bit of cinnamon and some powdered sugar, and that's how they're able to eat them. I mean, is that how they eat those things? They turn them into a dessert, or do they have them with a normal meal? Is it like a side? This chair, it's driving me crazy. But Manly Sprinkles, the next time the next time you fix some Manly Sprinkles, send a picture in Discord. I want to see them. I want to see them. And Kevin, the next time your family fixes some of those, take a picture of them. My gosh, I love those things. I like mine with a lot of meat in them. Give me meat. Make them meaty. All right, now some of this stuff I know that you guys, we still know, like we all have the peach cobbler, blackberry cobbler. I still know how to make my family's banana pudding, the real banana pudding, not the instant out of a box. I made dessert a few weeks ago. Colorado Cat said, you need to make a dessert, and I did. And I took a couple of shortcuts. I did some pre-made whipped topping, and normally I just don't do that. So I do, when I want banana pudding, I do make the real banana pudding. Girly Sprinkles, I'm gonna try it. I know that I have had fried plantains. I have had them sliced, on the round, and then I've had them where they were like, vertical or horizontal, and I haven't been able to warm up to them. But I'm going to try some, because where I've had them's been a restaurant, and I need to try them homemade. All right, now let me see if I missed anything. I know there's so many different styles of food. Here in America, we're a melting pot of foods from around the world. And I speak from my Southern heritage. And like Manly Sprinkles can talk about the Puerto Rican foods because they're very specific down there. The region that you're from or your family's from, or that you might be, enthralled with their food choices, like the Mediterranean foods. Yes, olives. Give me olives everywhere. Where you grew up dictates what kind of foods you grew up with. Local harvest, locally sourced produce, and even the meat choices. You might have a fish, seafood style diet like the Mediterraneans do, or you could have lamb. You could grow up with a lot of lamb. Like where I grew up, we simply didn't have a lot of lamb. We were chicken, beef, and pork. And that's what we tended to stick with because we had beef cattle, we had pork, we had chicken. It was all growing right there. But nobody, I don't know of anyone in my hometown that had a lamb or a sheep, anything like that. Those were not grown in my region. But you could have grown up in an area where they were plentiful and you might have had lamb stew. And I think the cottage pie or the shepherd's pie, one of those, it's made out of lamb. And I have lamb in the freezer. I need to get it made before I let it sit down there for too long. But is it the shepherd's pie or the cottage pie that's made out of lamb? One of them's made out of beef, one of them's made out of lamb. I just don't remember which is which. All right, did I miss anything? I took notes and wrote them down. There's some of it I skipped over. And we'll get those at a future date. I love these little sit downs where we just get to talk about food. And I've loved this one today about, foods that we grow up with and the foods that we miss. If I had to pick out one food that I miss the most, I really believe it would be my grandmother's fried okra. We called it okra back home. Her fried okra and mashed potatoes because I just loved it. I loved it. If I knew that my grandmother was going to be serving that, I would ask my teacher to just excuse me from school, and I would actually go and meet with my grandparents to have the meal with them if they were going to have fried okra and mashed potatoes. And I know that her mashed potatoes, they had bacon grease and butter with heavy cream. Bacon grease, butter, and heavy cream. She used all three with some salt and pepper, and her mashed potatoes they weren't fluffy whipped, but they had a consistency where you could still get little pieces of potato. Loved that. When you eat your mashed potatoes, do you want them air whipped, fluffy, like little clouds? Or do you like to get a little piece of potato through there, chunky or air fluffed, your mashed potatoes? Let me know. Leave me a comment. What does everybody prefer on their mashed potatoes? I definitely prefer mine to have some little chunky potatoes in them. I do. Oh, Kevin, I would love to see y'all take some pictures of the food that you get to eat that's from Mexico. Because I could be happy with some of that wonderful cheese dip and some nachos. The little the crispy fried chips. I love them. Oh, Manly Sprinkles, you posted plantains in the cooking Discord. I'll have to go over and take a look at it. I'll find it and go in there and take a look at it. So I think we've had a good chat today. Look for upcoming videos from me. Definitely the red eye gravy, the chocolate gravy. I'm going to try to do maybe some fried green tomatoes. I have fried green tomatoes on my channel, but there's a couple of styles of fried green tomatoes. And then Manly Sprinkles, we got to get some fresh tomatoes for Girly Sprinkles. She needs, a good sandwich. Speakeasy Bob. Welcome back, Speakeasy Bob. So, and let me know, what do you miss the most from your family's cooking? If you had to pick a meal, what was your favorite meal that maybe you don't have access to anymore? And have you tried to replicate it and haven't been successful? Leave me a comment. That's so important. So important. Did we miss anything that we need to talk about in an upcoming broadcast? I want to try to do these, maybe once a week, twice a month, something like that. because I like to be able to just sit down and chat about this food stuff. And I'm hoping that as my channels grow, more people will come in and we'll get to hear different perspectives that people absolutely love about different foods from around the world. Like, I would love from somebody to come in from Mediterranean, somebody from Germany, German potato salad. It's, what is it? Potatoes and vinegar, served hot. Or England, come in and talk about scones. I've made scones before. Zatu can talk about things that he loves, that's specific to his country, Scotland. I made some wonderful cookies, shortbread, butter cookies almost, but shortbread cookies. And I used, the Queen's real recipe. So delicious, so good. So definitely leave me some comments, leave me some notes. Girly Sprinkles, the Germans love that vinegary hot potato salad. They really do. They love that hot potato salad. If Mango was here, we would ask her about the potato salad. And then cornbread. I don't think I touched on cornbread, but I do love cornbread. I like it really just crispy, crunchy. I have a great cornbread recipe on my channel using duck fat. Duck fat, ooh, it makes a good rich cornbread. German potato salad is so good, says Manly Sprinkles. I know there are a lot of Germans that love it. They love that hot potato salad with a lot of vinegar on it. I used to go to a little German restaurant when I lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and they always had that hot German potato salad, and it was always tasty. Because malted vinegar, I love malted vinegar. I could just drink that stuff. I absolutely love it. So many good vinegars. Right now in the kitchen, I have a pear vinegar that's just, you can get those subtle flavors, that hints of the pear. I sometimes keep a peach vinegar that's so good. Now, the pambazo, is it pambazo? Is that the sandwich you told me about, Kevin? The recipe for the pambazo, send it in Discord. I think you mentioned that before. Is that a sandwich? I think it's a sandwich that you love. It's one of your favorite things, if I remember correctly. I'll wait for your response, Kevin. Is it the sandwich you told me about? We talked about it one day. Everybody. I feel like it's so quiet in here. So quiet.
Oh,
Superman, 6 more minutes till 2 hours. Is that my goal? I think I've got the. Let me see. Do I have the recipe here from what I could remember about my grandmother's gingerbread? That season is coming. I mean, we're going to be in the season where we're fixing desserts. And gingerbread is a big part of the holiday season. Oh, divinity. I didn't mention divinity or Christmas fruitcake. We'll have to save that for another one. It's the sandwich, Kevin. I thought it was. Kevin, is that your favorite meal? Girly Sprinkles, you love divinity? Do you know that growing up, we called it dibbity? We called it dibbity. And it's actually, the official name is divinity. I don't know how it got translated into dibbity, but somewhere along the line, it got turned into dibbity. But it is divinity. Hibbity dibbity. But man, oh man, that was always a treat. And we made, an oatmeal cookie that was a no bake oatmeal cookie. It was chocolate and peanut butter. I might even have that on my channel. I don't remember, but it was a treat when I was growing up. It would be made out of oatmeal, peanut butter, and chocolate, and I think there was some real butter in there. And gosh, it was so good. Divinity, my mother was a pro girly sprinkles. Hers was always just so beautiful. But I don't know. I don't believe I've ever tried to make it. I don't think I've ever tried to make it. I have made buttermints. Someone sent me a note and said, "Oh, well, why don't you make some of the pink buttermints?" But ultimately, the colors of buttermints are added food coloring. You could change the flavor by using a spearmint, a peppermint. You could probably use, a flavoring other than like vanilla. You could use some other type of flavoring. You could put in an almond flavor. You could put in an orange flavor. You could definitely get an orange buttermint. But to get that minty freshness, you still have to have the mint, spearmint or peppermint. And I think that I made peppermint because the spearmint sometimes tastes like medicine. It can be a little medicine-y tasting. But I made the buttermints. We used to go to a restaurant when we would travel years ago, like go in to get clothes, or if my mom wanted to make a huge grocery run, we'd put coolers in the vehicle, ice bags, and we would make this big old grocery run to a grocery store that was like 2 hours away. And I remember picking those up at this little restaurant we would eat at because you had to make it a whole day because it was 2 hours there, 2 hours back. And so you'd have lunch at the destination. And that restaurant always had such great mints. Avery, hello, hello, welcome in. We've just been talking about recipes that, are family recipes that you may have lost or you don't have access to them anymore. It's been a really good live stream today because so many of these recipes, the one I just wish I had was that cake, the one made out of gingerbread. I'm going to try to replicate it. And, my sister said, keep in mind that your grandmother did not use an electric mixer. No type of electric mixer was used. And growing up, I remember helping her with one of these. Not fishing. I wasn't on a rod and reel, but I remember she had a mixer that had double beaters on it, and it had gears and a hand crank. And you would place that into the bowl. The faster you turned, the faster those beaters would rotate. And I always thought, oh my gosh, it looks like so much fun. And until my grandmother said, oh, why don't you help me out and, do these eggs? Let me tell you, about 5 minutes of that, and I was like, holy cow, this is wearing me out. And I was young, but when you try to make meringue and you've got a manual hand rotated mixer, you got to get busy. And I remember my grandmother came over and she said, let me finish it up. And she took it away from me, and she was like the Bionic Woman. She had that thing spinning like crazy, and she had meringue whipped up with beautiful peaks in no time. That's how good she was. Avery, welcome in. Have you been into the chat before? Definitely mark my channel and come back. Check out some of my cooking channels. I live stream on Saturdays, and that's Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm on the East Coast, the Southeast, and I live stream. I try to on Saturdays. and I always have something good, fun, a great recipe. Got a lot of videos on my channel. So Avery, definitely come over there and hang out. I need some friends in the kitchen. Remember, the journey in the kitchen is so much better when you share it with a friend. Everybody that came in today, now for sure, come in on Saturday, and I need some suggestions about what I need to cook this Saturday. I was thinking about doing maybe, some other type of dessert. I do need to get the banana pudding on my channel. So, but I need to pick a dessert, and I try to keep it around an hour. That way, I don't take up your day, and it's easier for me just to keep it around an hour. So we got to think of desserts that I can do and something fun. That layered parfait, if you guys missed that thing was so delicious. So delicious. Thank you, Kat, for suggesting that I do the dessert. Because I stayed after the main display and did the pie. I did the layered pie. Kevin, a banana pie. I love a good banana pie. I love to smother a lot of fresh cut bananas on top. Yum. So tasty. So those are a lot of things to think about. If you think of a good recipe, remember, keep it at about an hour. And I've got 2 cameras, one front facing, one above. And I try to keep it where I can keep most things in the camera view. So drop me a note, drop me a recipe. Everybody that came in today, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Be sure to share my channel. Everybody that pushed me to 50 on Twitch, thank you for that. You're appreciated. Everybody that's gotten me, I'm approaching the 1,000 on YouTube, and that's been a goal of mine. And I'm getting close. I'm at like 954, something like that, 964. Let everybody know to come in and hang out. I'm friendly. I'm a safe zone. I am Ransom Ryder, and cooking is one of my favorite pastimes. If you enjoy it, come hang out. And viewers, I'll see you very soon. Come hang out with me. Let's be friends. Bye. Bye. Thank you, everybody. Send me some notes, some comments. Let me know what you want to see. I would love it. I would absolutely love it. The more, the better. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.